output actually. See, I've given first name at break, and then last name, break tag, and then enter your address. This is your text area. Text area where you can have 20 columns, COLS is equals to 20 and lines as 2. Okay, that means rows as 2. And password, email, and as I've mentioned, calendar, date of birth. So this will be your data input type. Okay, so this is about the different types of data that you can provide with the help of input element. And apart from this, you have few control buttons with respect to forms only. When you are filling the form, you can find a few buttons like submit button, reset button, and you can also, you would have seen this radio buttons, checkboxes, and drop-down list. So all these things comes under your control buttons only. Okay. So now we will see all these things step by step. Okay. So let us see first two things. One is submit button and second one is reset button. So the entire thing we have seen in the previous example only, like first name, last name, address, password, email, date of birth. We are done till this part, right? Now newly added button is your submit button. Submit button, after completing your task, what has to be done? You should submit it to the server to which you wanted to submit, right? So the input type is equals to submit, and you are giving name to the submit button, and on that submit button, what has to be written? What has to be written in the submit button will be your value. I have made it as submit, right? So value going to be displayed as submit. And in the same way, if after filling the data, now think that you have seen like the data that you have given is wrong, it is not up to the mark, then what you usually do, instead of going to each and every text box and removing, clearing the each and every text box, you write something over, you write something here, and you write something here, you have filled something, and you have filled something here, you have filled something here, and it will go. Okay, now you found that something is missing in this, somewhere you went wrong in the entire form. So what you will have to do, instead of going to each and every text box and making it as delete or backspace buttons, again coming over here, backspace, you have a special option called reset button. The entire data that you filled will be cleared, vanished. So if you want that thing to be happen in such scenarios, you use the button called reset button. So same thing, input type is equals to reset, name is equals to reset, and what has to be displayed is your reset again. Okay, this is how you use these buttons like submit and reset button. All these things that we are discussing now comes under control buttons only. Okay, and then this is another button that we usually see in the forms like radio buttons, like yes or no, female, male. What is your option? Giving only one option to the user to opt. Okay, so in such cases, radio buttons, these things we call it as radio buttons. So if you want to mention this in your form, then you use the radio button. How do you create the radio button? Now, what is that you're talking about? I'm talking about gender. Okay, so input type is equals to what I'm trying to create? Radio. Okay, and name is equals to, instead of radio, what is the data that you are talking about? You are talking about gender. Under which category? What is the group that you are talking about? Group of data that you are talking about. You can mention anything, but as a meaningful one, just make it as name, as if I am talking about gender. And what is the value that you are talking about? What value? I am talking about male. The actual value you provided here. The actual data you provided here. Okay. So listen carefully. I'm coming again. Input type is equals to radio. Okay. I'm creating the radio button whose name, which comes under a group name called gender, whose value I'm talking about is the mean, and the actual data that I am providing is the actual value here. Okay. Then what is the other option that you are providing? Input type is equals to radio, name is equals to, again you can make use of gender, value is equals to, again female, and what value you have, that is female again. Okay. So this is how you can opt only one option over here. It can be male or it can be female, but not both the options. Okay. Right. Next, coming to this checkboxes. If you have a situation like where you have to opt more than one option, like what is your qualification? What are all the degrees that you have? So I have SSC, I have Inter, I have UG, but I don't have PG over here. That means I can opt SSC, I can take Inter, I can take UG also. Multiple options you can opt it. Whereas in the radio button you will not have these kind of options. So if at all if you want to opt multiple things, you go with checkboxes. Okay. So for that you use input type as checkbox again, and we will have to give name for that checkbox, that is some name that you wanted to provide, name as check and value as check. And what is the actual value that you have? It is SSC. What is the first value that I am providing? SSC. And same thing, input type. What are the multiple options that you wanted to give? Input type is equals to checkbox, name is equals to check, value is equals to check. What is the actual data that you are providing? Enter. And finally, same as with UG and same as with PG. This is how you create checkboxes. And then coming to this other button, which is called as the drop-down list. In the drop-down list, so you'll have an option like out of these options, you'll be selecting like state, Telangana, and in that state, to which district you belongs to. You will mention state as Telangana. Drop-down list, something like this: AP, Telangana, UP. So you belongs to which state? If it is Telangana, just make it as Telangana. Drop-down kind of list. For that, you will use a tag called select. Select name is equals to select. And what is the option value that you are providing with? What is the option value that I have? AP. And what is the actual data that I have? I am talking about Andhra Pradesh, and then closing off option tag. In the same way, you'll have to mention multiple values that you wanted to provide. That is option value Telangana, and what is that actual data as Telangana, and finally closing of option tag. And finally closing of, do not forget to close this select tag with respect to, select tag comes only with respect to drop down lists. So this is all about the control buttons that we have. And in the coming class, we will be discussing about the different frames, how do we divide the frames into rows and columns. We will be seeing it in the next class. Thank you.